A few days later, Ha started leaving the house more often. She told Quang that customers were placing online orders and she needed to deliver them to town. Some days, she left early in the morning and didn't return until late in the afternoon. On other days, the sky had already turned dark, streetlights flickering, and still no sign of her. Quang didn't say anything. He quietly set the table, placing Ha's portion neatly under the food cover. One time, he gently asked, "Are you getting tired from going out so much lately?" Ha was wiping her face, paused for a moment, then quickly replied, "Online sales require hustle now. If not, people order once and never come back." "Oh, I was just asking, that's all." "I know, but don't worry too much. I can handle it myself." Quang nodded, but something began to gnaw at him. It wasn't because he was overly suspicious. It was Ha's eyes when she lied, avoiding his gaze. Vague and clumsy. One night, around 11 p.m., Quang woke up suddenly to the creaking of the back door. He sat up, looked to his side, and saw Ha wasn't there. The kitchen light was off, but moonlight from the yard streamed through the door slats, enough for him to see a figure standing close to the banana trees. He stepped out, quietly crossing the backyard. Ha was leaning against a post, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low but clear. "I told you it's not a good time to meet yet." "No, it's not because I don't want to, it's just, never mind. Don't ask anymore." After a moment, she turned to go back in and saw Quang standing silently at the steps. She froze. You're still up?" Quang looked her straight in the eyes. "Who were you talking to?" Ha flinched, a little uneasy. "Just an old friend. Called to ask me to help find a place to rent in town." "At this hour?" "Well, it was urgent." "A guy? What are you accusing me of?" Quang said nothing. Ha lifted her chin, voice rising. "You think I'm doing something behind your back, don't you? Don't assume everyone is like those people on TV dramas." Quang stepped closer. "I don't want to be suspicious, but you've changed, Ha. Since we moved here, you're not the same as when we first got married." Ha crossed her arms. "I haven't changed. It's just, living here too long feels suffocating. Everyone watches and gossips. You've been talking to someone from your past, haven't you? Is it Ty? Isn't it?" Ha was silent, just for a moment, but it was enough to shatter everything like cracking glass. She turned and walked straight into the house, raising her voice without looking back. "If you don't trust me, then stop asking. I'm not a prisoner to be watched with every breath." The next morning, Ha woke up early, lightly put on makeup, threw on a jacket, and rolled her bike out. She didn't say a word to Quang, just left a note on the table. "Urgent order. I'll be back tonight." Quang sat still, holding the note in his hand for a long time. That whole day, the sky was gloomy, with a persistent drizzle. A few neighborhood ladies gathered at the tea shop at the alley's entrance, whispering like the wind. "Ha's been out a lot lately, hasn't she? Yesterday I saw her riding behind someone. Strange license plate, headed toward town. Maybe she's..." "Shush, keep your voice down. If Quang hears, it'll break his heart." Quang stood hidden behind the fence, hearing every word. His hand clenched the metal latch so tightly it drew blood. But he stayed silent. That night, he decided to follow her. Around 5 p.m., Ha wore a long skirt, a jean jacket, and carried a bag onto her motorbike. Quang pretended to nap, then quietly trailed behind on his old scooter. She headed straight to town, turned onto a few small roads, and stopped in front of a guest house named Tam. A man was already waiting, tall, slim, wearing a white shirt. They exchanged a few words, then walked inside. Quang stood across the street, the moist breeze of the rainy afternoon blowing around him. The world seemed to collapse, crashing into his chest. He didn't rush in, didn't scream, just stood there for a long time, until darkness fell, then turned his bike around and slowly rode home. On the way back, his bike stalled on a bridge. He slumped down by the roadside, head bowed, raindrops speckling his shirt. The yellow streetlight shone down on his face, revealing the blurred, stained features of a man who had just lost all trust. His phone buzzed. A message from Ha. "I'll be late. Last-minute customer. Don't wait for dinner." Quang didn't reply. The phone screen reflected his face, cold, hollow, and beginning to crack. In the small dark house, only the faint light on the ancestral altar remained. The wind blew the curtains open. The starfruit tree in the yard rustled wildly. And in the corner of the old well, a single drop of water fell, sending ripples across the surface. The dark water seemed to whisper something, but no one could hear it. Only Quang, still sitting silently at the dinner table, the seat beside him empty. And out there, somewhere in the darkness, betrayal was slowly leading them to a bottomless abyss. A few days later, Ha started going out more often. She told Quang that customers were ordering online and she needed to go into town to deliver in person. Some days, she left early in the morning and didn't return until late afternoon. Other days, it was already completely dark, the streetlights flickering, and still no sign of her. Quang said nothing. He quietly set the table, leaving Ha's portion neatly under the food cover. One time, he gently asked, "You've been out a lot lately. Aren't you tired?" Ha was wiping her face, paused briefly, then quickly replied, "Doing online business now means running around. Otherwise, people order once and never come back." "Oh, I was just asking. Didn't mean anything. I know, but don't worry too much. I can take care of myself." Quang nodded, but something inside him began to stir. It wasn't because he was suspicious by nature. It was the look in Ha's eyes when she lied, avoiding. Vague, awkwardly unconvincing. One night, near 11 p.m., Quang suddenly woke up when he heard the creak of the back door. He sat up straight, looked over. Ha wasn't in bed. The kitchen light was still off, but moonlight from the garden streamed through the door crack, enough for him to see a figure standing by the banana tree. He stepped out, quietly crossing the backyard. Ha was leaning against a post, holding her phone to her ear. Her voice was soft, but clear enough. "I told you it's not a good time to meet." "No, it's not that I don't want to, it's just, never mind. Don't ask anymore." After a while, she turned to go back in and saw Quang standing silently at the steps. She froze. You're still up?" Quang looked her in the eye. "Who were you talking to?" Ha was startled, a little uneasy. "Just an old friend. Called me to ask for help finding a rental in town." "At this hour?" "Well, it was urgent." "A guy? Are you accusing me of something?" Quang stayed silent. Ha lifted her chin, her voice rising. "You think I'm doing something behind your back, don't you? Don't think everyone's like those people in TV dramas." Quang stepped closer. "I don't want to be suspicious, but you've changed, Ha. Ever since we moved here, you're not the same as when we first got married." Ha crossed her arms. "I'm still me. It's just, living here too long feels suffocating. Everyone's nosy, watching every move. You're talking to an old flame, aren't you? It's Ty, isn't it?" Ha went silent, just for a second, but it was enough for everything to shatter like cracked glass. She turned and walked straight into the house, raising her voice without turning back. "If you don't trust me, then stop asking. I'm not a prisoner to be monitored with every breath." The next morning, Ha got up early, put on light makeup, wore a jacket, and wheeled her bike out the door. She didn't say a word to Quang, just left a note on the table. "Urgent delivery. I'll be back tonight." Quang sat still, holding the note in his hand for a long time. That entire day, the sky stayed gray, and light rain kept falling non-stop. A few neighbor ladies gathered at the tea shop near the alley, whispering like wind. "Ha's been out a lot lately." "Huh? I saw her yesterday riding on someone's bike. Strange license plate, heading toward town. You think maybe?" "Shush, keep your voice down. If Quang hears, he'll be heartbroken." Quang stood hidden behind the fence, hearing every word. His hand gripped the metal latch so tightly it bled. But he said nothing. That night, he decided to follow her. Around 5 p.m., Ha wore a long dress, a denim jacket, and slung a bag over her shoulder. Quang pretended to nap, then quietly followed her on his old motorbike. She drove straight to town, turned onto a few narrow streets, and stopped in front of a guest house called An Tam. A man was already waiting, tall, slender, wearing a white shirt. The two exchanged a few words, then walked inside. Quang stood across the street, the damp scent of rain blowing in the wind. The whole world seemed to collapse, crashing into his chest. He didn't storm in, didn't shout. He just stood there for a long time, until night fully fell, then turned his bike around and slowly headed home. On the way back, Quang's motorbike broke down in the middle of a bridge. He slumped down on the roadside, head bowed low, rain speckling his shirt. The yellow streetlight cast a glow on his face, revealing the blurred, bruised expression of a man who had just lost his trust. His phone buzzed. A message from Ha. "I'll be late. Urgent customer meeting. Don't wait up." Quang didn't reply. The phone screen reflected his face, cold, hollow, and beginning to fall apart. Inside the dark little house, only a faint light from the ancestral altar flickered. The wind ripped the curtain open. The starfruit tree outside swayed violently. And in the old well corner, a single drop of water fell, sending ripples across the surface. The dark water whispered something, but no one could hear. Only Quang still sat silently at the dinner table, the chair beside him empty. And out there, somewhere in the night, betrayal was slowly leading him toward an endless abyss. That night, heavy rain poured down. Gusts of wind swept through the door cracks, making the back door creak. The cold seeped through to the bone. Quang sat silently on his familiar wooden chair, eyes fixed on his phone screen, where a message had just appeared from an account named Thai, Red Mahogany Wood. "Tonight, you must go. I'll take care of the rest." Quang's fingers clenched tight. His face darkened. He put down the phone, stood up, and walked to the door. The noise made Ha turn her head. She was drying her hands in the kitchen, turned around and gently asked, "What's going on?" Quang walked straight over, stopping just a step away from her. He looked directly into his wife's eyes, his voice low and heavy. "You and Ty still keeping in touch, aren't you?" Ha stiffened slightly. She quickly regained her composure and forced a faint smile. "You're suspecting me again for no reason?" Quang didn't back down. He said firmly, "Don't dodge it. I read the message." Ha blinked, her hand gripping the edge of the kitchen towel. She didn't respond right away, but lowered her voice, speaking evenly like trying to stay calm. "If you've seen it, then what do you want me to say?" Quang fell silent for a beat. His eyes reddened slightly, his voice hoarse. "You love him?" Ha didn't deny it. She gave a small nod, then spoke slowly. "I don't love you anymore. That's all." Quang clenched his jaw, stepped back half a pace. After a moment, he took a deep breath, grabbed his raincoat, and headed outside. Before opening the door, he turned back and asked one last time, "You really feel nothing for me anymore, Ha?" Ha looked at her husband, her gaze empty. "Take it however you want." Quang opened the door and stepped into the cold, rainy night. No umbrella, no more words. He simply disappeared into the shadows and the slanting rain. No one ever saw Quang return. No one ever heard him speak again. Because, just about an hour later, behind the house, in the darkness of the old well corner, a silent but brutal struggle took place. The man named Tai had quietly arrived from the back path, and Quang never had the chance to leave this life on his own terms. Just one hard blow with a wooden stick, one shove from behind when he wasn't expecting it, and a body was pushed down into the deep well, a place already prepared in advance. Ha stood trembling by the well's edge. Her hand covered her mouth tightly, eyes wide as she watched the man's body fall, water splashing up onto her plastic sandals. Tai silently stepped forward, coiled up the rope, and whispered into the wind, "I told you. Fast, clean, leave no trace." Ha hugged her shoulders, mumbling like talking to herself. "I didn't think he'd look at me like that as he fell." Tai snapped, "You're still thinking about that now? If you weren't sure, you shouldn't have dragged me into this." A while later, they sealed the well with pre-mixed cement, scattered dry leaves on top, covered it with a thin layer of red dirt, as if nothing had ever happened. The next morning, Ha pretended to sleep in until almost noon. She dressed neatly, tied her hair in a loose bun, and walked out of the house like a woman who had just lost her husband. When she arrived at the commune police station, Ha bowed her head and said to the officer on duty, I'd like to file a report." "My husband has gone missing." The officer took notes, asking carefully, "Can you tell us more?" Ha nodded, faking a sigh. Her voice trembled. "Last night, we had a fight. Then he grabbed his raincoat and went out. He hasn't come back. I tried calling, but can't reach him." The officer looked at her for a few seconds, then wrote down, "For now, we'll proceed with a missing person investigation. Please stay calm and wait for further updates." Ha nodded, her eyes brimming as if she had just endured a traumatic shock. 2 days later, the whole village was buzzing about Quang's disappearance. Some said he was heartbroken and wandered off somewhere, but others whispered, "They just got married not long ago. And Quang already left? That's odd. I've noticed his wife going out early and coming home late a lot lately. Wonder if something's going on." Mrs. Tu, the old lady who lived next door to Ha, was the first to sense something unusual. One drizzly afternoon, she sat huddled under the porch, looking toward Ha's garden, and whispered to her daughter, "Did you hear anything?" "What did you hear again, Mom?" She pointed toward the well. "Last night, I heard moaning from over there. Like a man calling someone's name, sounded like, Ha, then, Quang." "You must have been dreaming." Mrs. Tu shook her head seriously. "I was wide awake. The wind last night was freezing. But that cold, it wasn't just from the rain. It felt like the breath of the dead." That sentence made her daughter shiver, too scared to ask anything more. That night, Ha went to the backyard to do laundry. As she approached the clothesline, the light from the house cast shadows onto the banana grove, making her freeze. A muddy patch of fabric peeked out from the leaves. She moved closer. It was Quang's old carpenter shirt, the thick, earth-brown kind he wore every day. But now, it was covered in mud and a dark smear streaked across the fabric. A pungent, metallic stench rose up. Ha shuddered. Her hand holding the shirt trembled, eyes wide staring at the stain under the light. She quickly turned, ran back inside, stuffed the shirt into the bottom of a cabinet, and locked it. The wind howled through the cracks. The starfruit tree in the yard shook violently. A few yellow leaves dropped onto the sealed well, spinning in the air as if refusing to fall completely. Ha slumped down onto the floor, hugging her head, heart pounding wildly. From the well outside, the howling wind suddenly turned into a faint groan, as if someone was gasping beneath the ground. That night, the rain had stopped, but the atmosphere inside the house still felt heavy, as if something hadn't fully dissipated. Ha turned off the light and went to bed early, resting her head on the edge of the bed where Quang used to sleep. The room was so silent she could hear the ticking of the wall clock clearly. After a while, she drifted into a restless sleep, exhausted, but not at peace. In her dream, Ha saw herself lying in that very same room, but the light was dim and hazy, like it was shrouded in mist. She couldn't move, only able to see someone's feet standing right at the doorway. A deep but choked up voice echoed, so familiar it made her skin crawl. "Give me back the truth." Ha panicked and lifted her head. In front of her was Quang. His entire body was soaking wet, his hair matted and messy, his clothes covered in mud, his face pale and bloodless. His eyes were red, as if he had cried all night. Ha backed up against the bed frame, her mouth opening but no sound coming out. Quang didn't approach, he just stared at her, then turned around, slowly disappearing into the darkness of the hallway. A cold gust of wind blew through, flinging the dream window open. The white curtain fluttered wildly as if someone was trying to grab it. Then everything went black. Ha bolted upright, sweat soaking the back of her shirt. She gasped for air, gripping the edge of the bed. The room was once again quiet, as if nothing had happened. But one thing made her freeze: her feet were covered in mud. She sat up straight, looking around. The floor was clean, no footprints, but clearly, the soles of her feet were smeared with mud, red mud. Slimy, and reeking of dampness. She stepped into the bathroom, turned on the water to wash her feet. The metallic stench of the mud on her skin made her shiver. She looked at herself in the mirror, eyes wide with panic. Face worn out like someone who hadn't slept all night. At the same time, across town, Tai was fidgeting inside a cramped motel room. For days now, Bad luck had been following him. Yesterday, while unlocking his door, a nail fell from somewhere and pierced straight into his foot. Blood gushing everywhere. Today, just after putting the kettle on the stove, he got burned by boiling water spilling out unexpectedly, even though he clearly remembered turning the heat on low. Then while changing a light bulb in the bathroom, it exploded in his hand. A shard of glass cut right beside his eye. Tai slumped onto a chair, his foot bandaged, cigarette pressed tightly between his lips. He stared at his phone, muttering to himself, "No way, just a coincidence, just a coincidence?" His phone buzzed. A message from Ha. I dreamed of him, soaking wet, standing right at the bedroom door. Tai threw the phone onto the table, jumped up, pain shot through his injured foot, causing him to collapse, gritting his teeth. Quang is dead, he can't be showing up anymore. But he knew, deep inside, a vague fear was creeping out. A feeling like someone was watching him from behind. The next morning, Ha went to the market with a disturbed mind. She didn't speak to anyone, just bought what she needed and hurried back. As she opened the gate, she suddenly heard children talking in the yard corner. It was little Na, neighbor Mrs. Nam's daughter, playing hide and seek with some other kids in the neighborhood. The girl stood right by the well, pointing down, and said something that sent chills down Ha's spine. "There's a man down in the well. He waved at me to come play with him." A nearby mother panicked, quickly pulled Na back, scolding her softly. "Don't say such nonsense. That's not something to joke about." But little Na kept talking, innocently as if telling the truth. "I saw him. He had mud on his shirt. He was standing down there, smiling at me." Ha stood frozen at the gate. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. She turned around and rushed into the house, slamming the door shut. Cold sweat ran down her neck, and her spine felt like someone had just blown right against it. Later that day, a police car pulled up in front of the gate. Two commune officers stepped out, holding a notebook and some documents. One walked up and spoke in an even tone. "Ms. Ha, we have an order to expand the investigation regarding the disappearance of Mr. Vo Quang. We hope you'll cooperate." Ha clenched the edge of her shirt, nodding like someone who had just received a death sentence. Her head buzzed, ears rang. She knew the truth couldn't be hidden forever. The wind outside swept through the cracks again. Inside the house, the air felt heavier by the second. From the bottom of the well, there seemed to be a faint moan rising, blending into every panicked heartbeat thudding in her chest. Ha's house suddenly became the most frequently visited place by the commune police in the village over the past few days. Though nothing was said outright, the looks in the office's eyes had changed. It was no longer just standard procedure, it was beginning to feel like suspicion. That morning, when the inspection team came to survey, a technician glanced around the backyard, pointed toward the well, and asked, "This well, does your family still use it?" Ha stood nearby, slightly startled. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded. No, we haven't used it in a while. The well broke, so I had someone seal it." The officer jotted something down in his notebook, then asked, "When was it sealed?" "About 2 or 3 months ago." The officer beside him glanced at his colleague, then nodded. "The seal looks pretty recent. The cement hasn't faded yet. Seems like it wasn't that long ago." A technician wearing boots stepped forward, used an iron rod to probe the soil around the well. He pressed down in a few spots, then frowned slightly. "The ground here is soft, possibly dug up before. There may also be water accumulation at the bottom." The group paused for a few seconds. The wind blew through, and starfruit leaves fell sparsely around the sealed well. Ha gripped the edge of her shirt tightly. Sweat began to bead on her temples even though it wasn't hot. She could hear her own heartbeat, each thud heavy and loud. Another officer asked, "If the well was broken, did you seal it because it was cracked? Or did someone suggest it?" Ha mumbled, "I just thought it was dangerous, so I sealed it for safety. There are small kids who come over to play, and I was afraid someone might fall in." That night, Ha sat blankly in front of the vanity. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken. She reached for her comb but suddenly froze. In the mirror, reflected behind her, was a figure. Quang, He was standing right behind her, still wearing that mud-stained shirt, his face pale and soaking wet. His eyes stared at her without blinking. Ha jumped up, spinning around, but behind her was only empty space. No one was there. She gasped for breath, hands trembling, slowly backing into the corner of the bed. That night, she didn't dare sleep. Around 2 a.m., as wind began to gust outside, Ha curled up under a thin blanket, ears picking up every sound of starfruit leaves brushing against the tin roof. Then, the sound of water, drop by drop, like falling steadily into the depths of a bottomless well. She sat up abruptly. At first, it was only the sound of water dripping, but then, she heard it more clearly. A voice whispered faintly, blending with the wind, "Ha, ha." She walked toward the window. In the dark night, the old well was strangely lit by the moonlight shining directly onto it. The voice called again, this time, clearer. "Give it back to me." Ha clutched her head, backing away, breathing hard. The sound of water from the well began to murmur unevenly, as if someone was stirring it, as if a hand was moving beneath the surface. She grew dizzy, her vision darkened, and she collapsed to the floor. The next morning, the police returned, this time with 2 people in forensic uniforms. One of them made a decision. "We're going to open the well for inspection." Ha had just regained consciousness after fainting the night before. Her eyes went blank when she heard that. She stammered, "Oh, open the well? But, is that really necessary?" One officer responded sternly. "This area is linked to a missing person. We must follow protocol." The atmosphere was tense like a tightened strain. The forensic team began drilling through the cement sealing the well. A damp, metallic stench quickly rose from below. One person covered his nose and whispered, "This smell isn't normal mud." After over an hour, the well was opened. They lowered a specialized flashlight and used a metal hook to retrieve something from the bottom. Everyone fell silent when the hook struck something round, soft, and covered in long black hair. One officer whispered, "Hair, a lot of hair." A decayed piece of cloth was pulled up. Inside revealed part of a human skull, pale white, still clinging to patches of darkened flesh. Forensic notes were immediately taken. One officer turned to look at Ha, who was now frozen under the porch. Her face pale, drained of all blood. News of human remains discovered in Ha's well quickly spread throughout the village. Police immediately cordoned off the scene and sealed all collected samples for forensic analysis. The small house became the center of attention in the entire area. Ha was summoned to the investigation office the very next morning. She wore a pale long-sleeved outfit, her face drained of color, eyes blank like someone who had lost her soul. In the interrogation room, an officer asked in a stern voice, "You're saying you had absolutely no idea there was a body in the well?" Ha nodded slightly, her voice hoarse like she had a fever. I didn't know. I'm truly confused myself." The officer placed a set of photos showing the bones and hair samples on the table. Then continued, "But according to preliminary results, the victim suffered a sharp stab wound through the skull. This wasn't a typical accident of falling into a well. It was intentional killing." Ha's hands trembled slightly. She lowered her head, silent. After a moment, she muttered, I can't believe something like that happened in my home." The investigator pressed on, voice lower. "What's strange is, earlier you said the well was broken. So it was sealed, but neighbors reported the well was still in use until just over a month ago." I was worried children might fall in." "A month? That matches the time Mr. Quang went missing?" Ha clenched both hands together. Sweat beaded across her forehead. She didn't answer. The investigator scribbled something in his notes, his eyes full of suspicion. At the same time, in a small motel about 10 kilometers from the scene, Tai lay sprawled in his room. Even the sunlight coming through the window couldn't dispel the gloom on his face. His eyes were sunken, lips cracked, limbs trembling. For 3 nights in a row, he'd had the same dream, Quang standing at the head of the bed, holding a wooden stick, the same stick Tai had used to strike him. Each time Quang appeared, his face got closer, and blood from the top of his head flowed more heavily. Tai muttered to himself, cigarette clenched tightly between his lips. You're dead? You're dead already? His phone vibrated. An unknown number. Tai didn't dare answer. But not even a minute later, someone knocked at the door. He panicked, jumped up, holding a small knife he had hidden under his pillow. But it was just a shaman, someone Tai had reached out to based on a vague online referral. Tai asked with a shaky voice the moment he opened the door. Can you lift a curse? I'm haunted. I see the dead every night. The shaman nodded calmly and stepped into the room. His eyes paused on a temporary altar Tai had just set up, with a single incense stick burning, smoke rising thickly. The shaman's voice was cold. Someone died unjustly, they haven't crossed over. They're following you every hour. Tai clutched his head, collapsing into a chair. How do I make it stop? How do I make them let me go? The shaman didn't answer. He simply pulled out a yellowed paper from his bag and handed it to Tai. Stick this talisman to your chest. But remember, the karma of killing can only be delayed, not erased. At the same time, police continued searching Ha's house for more evidence. In an old leather wallet of hers, they found a small folded piece of paper. On the outside, in faded red ink, were 4 small words. Fan Sat Hon Lin, he who harms shall have the grudge returned to his own body. A forensic officer held up the talisman, frowning. This is a fan bua, a traditional charm meant to reflect karma back to whoever caused harm. The officer beside him nodded and made a note. Looks like Ms. Ha suspected things wouldn't rest easy, so she kept this with her. That afternoon, old Mrs. Tu sat on her porch, thumbing her prayer beads, eyes staring toward Ha's house. Suddenly, she began to tremble, collapsed into her chair, muttering before springing up, her eyes wide and strange. Her daughter rushed over in a panic. Mom, what's wrong, Mom? But the old woman no longer spoke in her own voice. A hoarse, heavy male voice came out of her frail body. Tai, I'm not dead yet. You think sealing the well was enough? You buried me? The entire neighborhood heard it and collectively shuddered. Her daughter screamed in fear, calling for help to bring Mrs. Tu inside. The old woman lay unconscious, but her lips kept moving. You buried me? I haven't crossed over. That same evening, news of Mrs. Tu being possessed spread everywhere. Tai learned about it through a message from a friend in the village. Cold sweat broke across his back. He packed up his belongings and fled. Meanwhile, Ha was being held at the police station. She sat curled up in the room, eyes staring blankly into the distance. Her mouth kept repeating the same phrase, as if it had been etched deep into her memory. I didn't kill. I was just dragged along. I didn't mean to. At the forensic lab, a police officer was inserting a memory card from an old digital camera into a computer. The device had been confiscated during a search of the storage room in Ha's house. Initially, no one paid attention to it, assuming it was broken, but the surprise lay within that tiny memory card. In just a few minutes, the screen displayed a sequence of images. Among them, there was one that made the entire room fall silent for several seconds. An officer pointed at the image, his voice suddenly serious. This isn't a travel photo or family picture. The photo was taken at night. Under the flashlight beam, Ha and Tai were seen bending over, digging in the backyard. Both of them were covered in dirt, faces obscured by baseball caps. But their body types and the location matched perfectly with the patch of land next to the well, the one that had been sealed with cement. An investigator nodded, speaking with certainty. That's exactly where the well was sealed. The photo angle is from behind the kitchen door. It's clear someone left the camera running, or maybe Quang knew and secretly recorded it. The entire group went silent. That thought pierced through their suspicions like a needle. Perhaps Quang, before being murdered, had set the camera to capture evidence. Not long after, the tech team continued recovering deleted messages from Ha's phone. A long string of data was retrieved. Dozens of messages exchanged between Ha and Tai appeared. Did you prepare the cement and shovel? We had to do it tonight. He's already suspicious. After it's done, we pretend he ran away. I'll go report it. A legal officer squinted at the screen. murmuring. This was clearly premeditated, no longer impulsive or accidental. This is organized crime. The final message before the incident. Timestamp 8:51 p.m. that evening. When he leaves the house. I'll signal. You just need to do it. The entire investigation room went cold, as if doused in ice water. At the detention center, Ha began showing signs of losing control. She often sat curled up in the corner, hands covering her ears like trying to block out some sound. Her mouth mumbled non-stop, her eyes always staring as if someone stood right in front of her. One night, during a routine check, the on-duty officer walked in and heard her speaking clearly. I didn't mean to. I was scared. He was crying. Blood ran down his neck. I saw it. She looked up, eyes fixed on the empty wall. Why do you keep looking at me like that? I didn't mean to. I didn't hurt you. He made me do it. Those words were recorded in full and added to her psychological and medical evaluation file. But to seasoned investigators, they were unmistakable signs. Panic. Because the truth was closing in. As for Tai, after fleeing his first hideout, he continuously changed his route, using fake IDs to avoid detection. But none of it escaped the tracking system of law enforcement. A pursuit unit was dispatched to a border area, where a cheap guest house reported a suspicious man registering without an ID. Based on camera footage and tracing data, the image matched Tai with 90% certainty. At dawn the next day, officers stormed room number 7 on the second floor of Tan Bin guest house. When the door was busted open, Tai was slumped beside the bed, face pale as if drained of all strength. Beside him was his phone, screen still on, displaying a message he hadn't yet deleted. Tai, I'm not dead yet. You buried me. In a small room at the investigation office, the old shaman sat across from the investigators. In front of him lay the crumpled talisman found in Ha's wallet. His hand rested gently on the charm, eyes half closed as if listening to something invisible in the silence. After a while, he opened his eyes and spoke slowly. This is a Fan Sat Hon Lin talisman, also known in folklore as the blood karma reversal charm. Not many know about it, let alone dare to use it. It wasn't made to ward off spirits, nor to curse others. Its purpose is to reflect the soul. The room fell silent. One officer nearby gently asked, "Reflect the soul?" He nodded. Exactly. If the person wearing the talisman lives righteously, then it's nothing more than a dry piece of paper. But if they carry the karma of bloodshed, harbor intent to kill, or have killed, then the charm will turn against them. When the crime is committed, the resentment of the dead will follow the charm's path and cling to the killer. A female officer hesitated, then asked, "So, it's possible Ha didn't even know what kind of charm it was?" The shaman nodded slightly. Quite possible. Many people visit charm makers to bring something home for protection, to ward off misfortune, without knowing what they're holding. But the charm doesn't need understanding, only guilt. Once blood is spilled, no matter how deep it's buried, the charm will summon the spirit back to fulfill the cycle. He paused, eyes locking with everyone in the room. She wasn't cursed by anyone. She, along with her accomplice, sowed the karma. The charm was merely the door through which that karma returned. Another investigator tilted his head and asked, "So you mean, the dead can drive their killers mad?" The old man gave a slight nod, eyes still fixed on the aged talisman. Madness isn't needed, just the inability to sleep is enough. When the mind is restless, the spirits come. When night won't end, the soul will appear. And indeed, both Ha and Tai were going through a living hell. In solitary confinement, Tai could barely sleep. He would often scream in the middle of the night, bang his head against the wall, shouting endlessly, "Stop calling me. I can't save you. I won't go down there. Don't drag me." Every time guards rushed in to check, he would curl into a corner, his face drained of all color. Once, through tears, he kept repeating, "In the dream, the well is full of blood, it has no bottom. I keep falling. Quang is down there, his hand reaching from the mud, pulling me in." The prison staff simply recorded it. No one challenged it. According to medical reports, he showed no signs of mental illness. but his eyes sank deeper by the day. His skin grew grayer each hour, as if his blood was being drained. As for Ha, she didn't scream, but her silence was terrifying. Whenever anyone walked past her room, she would look up and stare for a long time. Not at them, but through them, as if someone else was standing behind. One afternoon, when a guard brought her meal, Ha sat curled in the corner. Her eyes were lifeless, but her lips whispered softly, just loud enough to be heard. "I wish he had hit me, or shouted at me, screamed, slapped me, anything." The guard paused. The woman before him, once a murderer's accomplice, now looked more like an abandoned wife than a criminal. Ha continued, voice trembling. "But no, he didn't do anything. Just stood there, stared at me, and cried blood." At the edge of the village, old Mrs. Tu, who had been possessed in the previous chapter, began to visibly deteriorate. Her vision faded, her voice rasped, her limbs were always cold. Her daughter took her to the hospital many times, but no diagnosis could be made. One night near the end of the month, drizzle fell and wind howled through the porch. Mrs. Tu sat with her back against the wall, thumbing her prayer beads, lips mumbling softly as if reciting something. By morning, she never woke again. The death was peaceful, painless, but as her family packed her belongings, they found a small notebook she had hidden under her pillow. The cover was worn, the pages yellowed, but the shaky handwriting inside remained clear. The final line in the notebook read, "Every night, the same thing, 3 a.m., the well behind Ha's house stirs, like someone swimming upward, the sound of water gently splashing. No one believes it, but I know. The dead have not moved on." After nearly 2 months of investigation, forensic analysis, evidence examination, and data recovery, the murder case involving a body hidden in a well that had shaken the entire countryside finally entered the prosecution phase. That morning, Ha unexpectedly requested to meet with the investigation officer. She sat facing the sunlight streaming through the barred window. Her face gaunt, eyes deeply sunken, but calmer than ever. She lifted her head and softly said, "I want to take full responsibility. No need to investigate further. I'm the one who did it. Tai, he didn't do anything. He only helped me seal the well." An officer asked again, voice sharp as steel, "Are you certain about this statement? Because earlier, you completely denied everything." Ha nodded gently, speaking slowly as if every word had been prepared long ago. "I'm doing this, so he can go on living. One death, mine, is enough." In another interrogation room, Tai sat curled up in his gray prison uniform, hands still trembling slightly. When he heard that Ha had taken all the blame, he burst out laughing, a dry, bitter laugh. An officer asked, voice like a blade, "She's claiming everything. What do you think?" Tai looked up, dark circles under his eyes, and said firmly, "She was the mastermind. I just followed the plan. She's the one who dealt the killing blow. I never intended to kill anyone. But you buried the body. Sealed the well? I was forced. I got dragged into it." The investigator said nothing more. He simply closed his notebook, his gaze unchanged, but inside, it was clear: one crime, 2 people, and both wanted to drag the other down with them. On sentencing day, the whole village came to watch. Some came out of curiosity, some in shock, others sighed silently at such a bitter tragedy. The Provincial People's Court announced the final investigation results. Defendants Nguyen T. Ha and Levan Tai are prosecuted for organized murder, concealment of a corpse, intentional false testimony, and causing exceptionally serious consequences. The trial had barely begun when the skies suddenly turned gloomy, and gusts of wind swept through. People looked around at each other. As the judge read the sentence aloud, the courtroom microphone suddenly emitted a strange sound, not clearly electronic nor from any known source, but everyone heard the same deep voice echo throughout the room. "Have you forgiven me yet?" Both defendants froze at the same time. Ha broke down in tears, collapsing onto the table. Tai fainted on the spot, his mouth murmuring as if trying to say something, but too late. The court officials immediately halted the trial to provide medical assistance. The entire room fell silent. No one dared to speak. Only an old man sitting at the back whispered, "The dead have returned." A few days later, Quang's family rebuilt a proper grave for him next to the old rice fields, where he used to run and play as a child. The grave was neat, with a carved stone marker, a fresh incense bowl, and white wreaths. As the memorial ended, a strong gust of wind suddenly swept across the empty lot. The old fan-sat talisman, brought to be burned, ripped in half before it could be lit, spiraled into the sky, and vanished into the sunlight. The nearby villagers murmured to one another. The talisman tore apart, perhaps his soul has found peace now. An elderly woman with a cane slowly nodded, her eyes gazing far toward the sealed well. Those who kill must pay. But the one who suffered finally found the way home. Perhaps the greatest sin is not in the act itself, but in the choice to remain silent when evil begins to stir. Quang is gone, but the truth eventually rose from the bottom of the well. As a reminder, no matter how deeply it's buried, karma spares no one. If you found this story thought-provoking, leave a comment below. Right finger, "I believe in karma," or "No one escapes their conscience," so we can reflect on this together. Pushpin, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell icon, so you won't miss the next stories, deep, chilling, and unforgettable like this one. Thank you for watching until the very end.